Hi guys! So Christmas is around the corner, and here on my recipe book with me, Tarika, I'm just going to ditch all the Christmas cakes and puddings to make really cute little cupcakes, but with an Indian twist. I'm going to stir some chikki into the frosting of these cupcakes, and the frosting is going to be made of cream cheese, which will really just make it look like snow on each one of these cupcakes. You know, now chikki is nothing but just an Indian nut brittle. I'll tell you more about it when we get to it, but I think Santa is going to be pretty impressed with what I have in store today. But first, before we start anything today on a Christmas episode, we've got to get into the Christmas spirit. Okay, so now can I start sifting the flour? I've got 125 grams of all-purpose flour, maida, and I'm just gonna add a quarter of a teaspoon of regular salt and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Now, if you're going to use salted butter in this recipe, then just skip the salt. I'm going to use unsalted butter, which is why I'm adding the salt at this stage. So I'm just going to sift this together. It's always good to sift the dry ingredients and move on to creaming the butter and the sugar together. So I've got 125 grams of caster sugar that I've weighed out already here, to which I'm going to add an equal amount of unsalted butter, and this is at room temperature. And now I'm just going to cream the butter with the sugar. Because the butter I've used was really almost of a melty consistency, I'm just going to be careful and not overbeat it at this point, otherwise my mixture will start to curdle. So I just have to keep that in mind. So now it's time to start adding the eggs, but the one thing you should always keep in mind is to add the eggs one at a time. This keeps your batter from curdling. And baking eggs are always large eggs because it's about the weight of it. Now add the second egg. And suddenly you see the batter taking on a slightly off-white color. Now it's time to get some really good quality vanilla extract. Whisk that in. A quick whisk this time, not too long. Am I the only one who's already in love with the batter? Am I? No. Am I? Okay, cool. I'm going to add the flour also in batches. That's also really important to keep it from curdling. Baking is all about patience, isn't it? You can't really rush into it. Add half of the dry ingredients only. Okay, so this batter is just perfect and just ready to be spooned into the cupcake liners now. So I just like to use this cookie scoop. I use this for measuring out cookie dough. I like using this to measure out or to scoop the batter into these cupcake liners. Just get it into these cupcake liners. This should make about 9 cupcakes. So this is what I do. I always just get it first into all the cupcake liners and then I start equaling it out. Otherwise, I always feel like I'm being partial to one cupcake liner and not the other. So I'm done playing with the cupcake batter. I've spooned it out pretty equally into these cupcake liners, and my oven is preheated to 180 degrees Celsius, which just means that we're about 15 minutes away from pulling these cupcakes out of the oven. I have to rush. See ya. So you have to let these cupcakes cool completely before you can start icing them. That should take about 15 to 20 minutes, but just make sure that you cool them completely. Otherwise, when you ice them, the icing will start melting and running and it'll just be messy. You get the picture. So I'm putting them on this wire rack so that they can cool really nicely from the bottom as well. I told you I was going to tell you what chikki is. Chikki is basically a nut brittle made with jaggery. That's what sets it apart and makes it so Indian. So I'm using the peanut version, but there are so many other versions that you will find in India. You'll find a sesame version or mixed nuts version. You know, whichever one that you can find easily, use that, and any flavor that you like. I like peanuts a lot, so that's what I'm going to go with. So now for the most therapeutic part of making these cupcakes, I've got this chikki in a sealed plastic bag now, and I'm just going to bash it up. You want it to be broken into tiny pieces, but not powdery. So just get that fine balance. Let's just get on with this very cathartic act now. So the chikki is nicely bashed up. I'm feeling a little bit better about myself, so I can move on to the frosting. So I'm just going to set it aside for now and get on with the icing. I've got 150 grams of icing sugar that I've measured out here. I'm just going to sift that. And the reason why you sift icing sugar is because you don't want lumps in your icing. It's really important to sift this. And now I'm going to move on to the cream cheese frosting. So I'm just going to measure out the cream cheese. So when you're working with cream cheese, particularly in India, you have to be careful and keep a few things in mind. A lot of recipes, when you adapt them from abroad, will tell you to use cream cheese at room temperature, but that doesn't work in the Indian environment. What I always like to do is to start with cream cheese, which is slightly cold. So I'm going to add 70 grams of cream cheese. So once the cream cheese is in, you have to add some unsalted butter. So remember when you were making the cupcakes, I told you that it's okay to use salted butter. Don't make that mistake when you're making the icing, otherwise the icing will taste salty, and that's never a good thing. So make sure to use unsalted butter in this icing. This is a 70-30 ratio, so I've got 70 grams of cream cheese and I'm going to add 30 grams of unsalted butter. So now it's time to just get back to using the beater and whisk together this frosting. So that's it. Just as soon as you see that the lumps are out and you've got a smooth frosting, just stop beating this. And now you know it's time to add these pieces of chikki. I'm going to add most of it and save some of it. You'll see why. Just add it. We're not going to beat it anymore. And you know, you could taste some of the chikki at this point. I approve. And just fold this in now. And you can see here that it's got a runny texture, and that's what a good cream cheese frosting should be. It should be slightly runny, but not melting. So now I'm going to quickly ice these cupcakes. You can use that offset spatula or even just a spoon. Anything is fine. So you want to get it onto the center and then just spread it around. Now it's entirely up to you how much or how little of this frosting you want on your cupcake. You know, a good comparison for cream cheese frosting is that it should look like snow. So guys, I'm pretty sure that whoever you make these cupcakes for this Christmas is just bound to be really impressed with them. Now, you can't really send me a gift to thank me for this recipe, but what you can do instead is to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and share it with your friends. Merry Christmas, and see you next time.